I couldn't feel my legs anymore. The cold had crept past my thighs, wrapping around me like iron chains. My arms pushed through the thick, black water, each movement heavier than the last. My breath was ragged, panic taking over. Above me, faint sunlight filtered through the trees, but down here, in the swamp, I was sinking. Then I saw him. Eric. He was standing at the edge of the marsh, just a few feet from solid ground. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't scared. He just watched me with this strange calm, like he'd been waiting for this. Eric, I gasped. Please, help me. He didn't move. Slowly, he crouched, resting his arms on his knees, tilting his head like I was some wounded animal. I've been waiting for this moment for 12 years, he said softly. It's poetic, really. I stared, too stunned to speak. This is what freedom looks like, he went on. You've always been so strong, so in control. And now, look at you. Helpless. Drowning in the one thing you thought you could manage. Tears blurred my vision. I tried to scream, but it came out as a dry, cracked whisper. You're not serious. Eric, I'm your wife. He gave a small smile. Regretful, almost. Not anymore. The mud was pulling me deeper. I reached for a branch, it snapped in my hand. The water was thick. Cold. Climbing higher. You'll be declared missing, he said, mostly to himself. They'll search. For a while. But no one will ask questions. You were tired. Overworked. Then gone. A perfect tragedy. I screamed. Not words, just raw, desperate sound. He didn't flinch. He stood. I'll circle back in 2 hours, he said. If you're still floating, I'll pull you back in. But I doubt it. Then he walked into the trees, humming something light and cheerful, like nothing had happened. I was alone. The water reached my chest. My muscles trembled. I wasn't ready to die. Not here. Not like this. Not by his hand. I'll survive, I whispered, teeth clenched. And you'll regret this. But the words disappeared into the swamp. 2 days earlier, I woke up to the smell of coffee and sunlight on my face. For once, there were no early calls, no alarms, no pressure. Just soft sheets, silence, and the rich scent of Colombian roast coming from the kitchen. Breakfast is ready, Eric called. I made your omelette, extra spinach, no mushrooms. I smiled. He always remembered the little things. As I stretched under the covers, peace settled over me. My company had just landed the biggest contract in our history, 3 major corporate buildings in downtown Charlotte. That deal would triple our revenue in a year. 10 years ago, Whitaker Commercial Cleaning was just a side hustle I ran between classes and night shifts. Now, we were a regional name. Offices, condos, warehouses, we handled it all. Eric had been by my side the whole time. Supportive. Steady. Never asking for more than I could give. That morning, I sat at our kitchen island, sipping coffee while he plated our food, humming quietly. His glasses fogged from the steam, his hair still messy. How did I get so lucky? I asked aloud. He turned and smirked. By not dumping me when I wore socks with sandals in college. I laughed. I knew you had potential. It wasn't just a joke. Things had been hard in the beginning. We had almost nothing. Just love and a shared dream. I was pregnant when we married, unplanned, and definitely not easy. Then a drunk driver took everything. I lost the baby. The doctors told me I might never carry again. It nearly broke me. But Eric stayed. He held my hand in the hospital. He never let go, even when I sank into silence and grief. Back then, I thought he was my anchor. I didn't know he was the storm. He built a shell around both of us and stood guard. After the accident, we stopped talking about children. We didn't talk about the loss again either. It became this quiet space between us, painful, but sacred. I poured myself into work. Eric, Sweet Eric never complained. He took care of everything at home, cooked dinner, folded laundry, ran errands, even answered my emails when I forgot. He called himself the house husband of the year. I called him my anchor. He taught part-time at the university, literature and theory. He seemed content staying in the background. At least that's what I believed. He never said a word about my long hours or late-night meetings. I thought we were a team. That morning, sitting across from him at the kitchen island, everything still looked perfect. Our condo in uptown Charlotte was warm and modern, filled with art, books, and soft morning light. On paper, it was the kind of life people dream of. But something was off. As we talked, I noticed he wasn't really looking at me. His eyes were just a little to the left of mine, like he was hearing me but not really listening. When I reached out to brush a crumb from his chin, he flinched. Barely, but enough. Are you okay? I asked. He blinked. Yeah, just tired. You haven't been sleeping much. Neither have you, he replied, then added, it's normal, right? Big stress, big milestones. I nodded. But something tugged at me. Something didn't feel right. Still, I let it go. We'd been through worse. Maybe we just needed time. That afternoon, I cancelled 2 meetings and told my assistant to hold all calls. I wanted a day with Eric. No work, no distractions. Just us. We walked the Greenway Trail by the river. The cherry blossoms were just starting to bloom. Couples passed holding hands. Kids on scooters, dogs chasing balls. It was peaceful. Normal. But we didn't talk much. He was quiet. Too quiet. I filled the silence with talk about work, new clients, the team, future plans. He nodded here and there, but his eyes were somewhere else. Later, we sat on a bench by the water. I finally asked, do you ever wish things had turned out differently? He glanced at me. What do you mean? Us. The baby. Everything. He was quiet for a long time. I watched a bird circle the water, searching for something it didn't find. I don't know, he said. Sometimes, I guess. I hadn't expected that. Maybe a lie. Maybe comfort. But he added, we made the best of it, didn't we? Yeah, I whispered. We did. I looked at him again. Really looked. And for the first time in years, he felt like a stranger. Same face, same voice, but something had changed. There were signs I had ignored. How he started locking his phone when he never used to. How he changed his passwords, said it was for security. How he started having meetings at odd hours, saying he was at the university even when I knew there weren't classes. And the receipts. Crumpled in his coat pocket. Fancy restaurants we'd never been to together. Ride-share drop-offs that didn't make sense. I told myself it was innocent. A dinner with friends. Maybe he didn't want to bother me with the details. But deep down, I knew better. The truth has a smell, like something left in the dark too long. Once you notice it, it doesn't go away. I started watching him more closely. Not obsessively, just carefully. Listening to his stories. Catching the little things that didn't line up. The way he smiled less when I walked into the room. It wasn't just that we were drifting apart. It was that I didn't know who I was drifting away from. One evening, I came home early and found him sitting on the couch, staring at the TV. He didn't hear me come in. Eric, I said. He jumped. Oh, hey. You're home early. You okay? Yeah, just grading papers. There were no papers. I kissed his forehead like nothing was wrong. But something cracked inside me. Not loud, not sharp, just quiet and deep. That night, I lay beside him, staring at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I wasn't angry. I just felt hollow, not yet. But for the first time in a long time, I went to bed that night feeling like life wasn't just something happening to me. It was. Something I was shaping piece by piece for me and my sons, and I knew one thing. With certainty. We weren't as alone as I once feared. It happened on a chilly spring afternoon, one of those days when the sun looks warm, but the wind cuts straight through you. I had bundled the twins into their stroller for a walk, thinking the fresh air might lull them to sleep and clear my own head. The park near our apartment had a small lake with a narrow paved path running along its edge. I had walked it dozens of times without issue, but that day I wasn't paying attention. I was texting a student to reschedule a lesson, pushing the stroller with one hand when the front wheel caught on a raised edge of the path. The stroller jolted forward. One of the diaper bags swung loose, and for a terrifying second, the stroller tipped. I lunged, grabbing it with both hands, pulling it back upright, my heart hammering. Whoa, careful. I turned breathless to see David jogging toward me. He had that same concerned look I'd seen the day of the premature birth. Like the world could fall apart at any moment and he'd hold it together if I couldn't. You okay? He asked, already checking the boys, who were fine, startled, but fine. I nodded, embarrassed. I'm fine. I just wasn't paying attention. David crouched beside me, tightening the strap on the bag and testing the wheels of the stroller. You don't have to do everything alone. You know, it's okay to need help sometimes. I wanted to snap back, to tell him I was handling it, but the truth was written all over me. Dark circles under my eyes. Shoulders tense, a pace of life that hadn't let up since the day Tyler walked out. I bit my lip and looked away. We walked back together in silence, him matching my pace, his hand occasionally steadying the stroller whenever the path got uneven. When we reached the apartment steps, I finally said softly, "Thank you for everything. You've been there more than anyone ever has." He shrugged slightly. "You don't have to thank me. I'm just doing what's right." But then he hesitated, his hands in his pockets. "Sophia, I need to say something and I need you to hear me out. No pressure. No expectations." I froze, still gripping the stroller handle. "Okay," he took a breath. "I care about you, not because I feel sorry for you and not because you need someone. I care because of who you are, because you keep going even when everything falls apart. I want to be in your life, but only if that's what you want to." The words hung in the air like they were too big for the space between us. I blinked, unsure if it was exhaustion or fear or something softer that made my chest ache. "I don't know what to say," I whispered. "You don't have to say anything right now," he replied quickly, a small smile easing the tension. "I just needed you to know." We stood there for a long moment, the only sound the soft breathing of the twins in their stroller. And for the first time since Tyler left, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel. Possibility. When he finally walked back to his truck, I stayed on the porch, staring at the sky turning orange over Columbus, whispering to myself, "What are you so afraid of, Sophia? You deserve to feel happy again." I didn't have an answer yet, but for the first time, I wanted one. A year can change everything. The twins are walking now, wobbly steps that make me hold my breath every time, ready to catch them if they fall. They babble constantly, calling out for Mama, and occasionally trying to copy Chloe, who loves teaching them new words. Chloe has become like an older sister, hovering proudly over them as if they were her own brothers. My tutoring work has grown to what started as a handful of online students has turned into a full schedule with enough income to cover rent, groceries, and even start a little savings account. I no longer worry about where the next dollar will come from. I built this life with my own hands, piece by piece, and it feels solid, like it won't crumble no matter what. And David, he's still here. We took things slow, just like he promised. He gave me space. To heal, never pushing, always respecting my boundaries. But somewhere along the way, I stopped looking at him as the man who helped me when my husband abandoned me and started seeing him for who he really is. Kind, steady, and fiercely loyal. One evening, after the twins were asleep and Chloe was working on a school project at the kitchen table, David and I sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the city skyline. I remember turning to him and saying, "I don't feel scared anymore." He smiled softly, reached for my hand, and replied, "Good, because you don't have to be. We're dating now officially. It's not a fairy tale where pain disappears overnight, and love fixes everything." Some nights I still wake up, thinking about Tyler, about how quickly someone you trust can betray you. But then I look at the life I have now, my children's laughter, Chloe's gentle hugs, David's quiet strength, and I know I'm exactly where I meant to be. As for Tyler, I heard through the grapevine that he took a plea deal for corporate theft and left Ohio after serving his sentence. He hasn't called, hasn't tried to see the boys, and to be honest, I'm grateful. I don't want his chaos anywhere near the life I'm building. Sometimes I think back to that night. The fall, the panic, the text I sent by mistake. If my hand hadn't slipped, if David hadn't answered, I don't know where I'd be. Maybe still trapped in a marriage that was killing me slowly, or worse, completely alone, believing I wasn't worth more than scraps of affection. But life has a strange way of guiding you even when it hurts. When I tuck the boys in at night, I whisper, "We're okay now. Mama's got you." Because it's true. We're not perfect. We're not rich. But we are safe, loved, and happy. I used to think I needed someone to rescue me. Now I know I rescued myself first. David just reminded me it was possible. And sometimes when I stand in the doorway watching my little family, Chloe reading to the twins while David laughs at their attempts to mimic every word, I can't help but think, all of this started because I sent a text to the wrong person. The wrong number that saved my life. And now there was no coming back. I whispered to the babies, "It's just us now, but we're going to be okay. I promise." The weeks after Tyler's arrest were a blur. There were lawyers, calls from the police, and paperwork I'd never imagined having to handle alone. And through it all, two tiny babies depended on me for everything. Two little souls who didn't care about betrayal or broken marriages. They just wanted warmth, food, and love. I was exhausted, running on caffeine and adrenaline, but there was no time to fall apart. I had to find a way to provide for us to build a life from scratch. So, I went back to what I knew best, teaching, only now it was virtual. I posted online ads for English tutoring using the only resource I had left, my laptop. Within a week, I had my first few students, people working from home, who needed help with grammar and business conversation. It wasn't much money at first, but it was something. And every dollar felt like proof that I could do this on my own. David noticed, of course, he noticed everything. One afternoon, he dropped by with a car seat base for my second-hand sedan. "You shouldn't be struggling to carry both carriers in and out every time," he said with a soft smile. Another time he handed me a list of local clients who needed English tutoring. People from his company who wanted evening lessons. "I mentioned your name," he explained. "Only if you're comfortable, of course." I didn't know what to say. Nobody had ever gone out of their way for me like that. Not even Tyler. Not really. David never hovered, never acted like I owed him anything. He'd stop by, help install a baby gate, or drop off diapers when he noticed I was running low, and then he'd leave, giving me space. Somehow, he understood I needed to stand on my own. But he also wanted me to know I wasn't alone. His daughter, Chloe, loved coming along, too. She was 8, sweet, and endlessly curious about babies. "Can I hold one?" she'd ask every time, and I'd smile and say yes, watching how gently she cradled their tiny heads. She called them my little brothers, and something about the way she said it warmed a part of me I thought had gone cold forever. There were still nights I cried, mostly when the boys refused to sleep, and the weight of everything felt crushing. But slowly, I started to see a future, not perfect, not what I had once imagined, but ours. A future I was building with my own 2 hands, fueled by every ounce of determination I had left. One evening, while folding laundry at the kitchen table, David leaned against the doorway and said, "You know, Sophia, you're stronger than you realize. Most people would have broken by now." I laughed softly, shaking my head. "It doesn't feel like strength. It just feels like surviving." He stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "Surviving is strength. And you're doing more than that. You're building something new." I looked at him, then really looked, and for the first time, I let myself see what was in his eyes. Not pity, but respect and maybe something more. I pushed the thought away. I wasn't ready for that.